What's up guys, welcome to the Tier 3 Patreon tutorial for February. I'm going to be making a pretty simple but cool looking asset today. I'm going to show you some techniques with using lattice and various techniques to get a clean curvy mesh. So what we're going to do is start with a simple cube. I'm going to take the cube, move it up a bit, and I think what we'll do is maybe bring this up another unit. So G, Z, and then 1. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. Let's leave it at the default size here. I think that'll be good. Then what we'll do is scale this maybe SX and then 0.8 should be fine. And then we'll come over here, and what I think we'll do is maybe SY and then 0.6, 0.7, 0.8 maybe. Let's do 0.7. Yeah, that should be a good enough size. We'll go ahead and apply the rotation and scale. Alright, so from here what I want to do is, let me turn on screencast keys so you guys can actually see what I'm pressing. Alright, so here's like the base block out, right? This is pretty much what I want. Now, I want to get this nice and curvy and decent looking, so to do this, I'm going to actually use a lattice. So, in hard ops, it's obviously really easy to use a lattice, but if we're doing this in vanilla, what we need to do is simply add in a lattice manually. So we'll go in here, add in Shift A lattice, which should be under, oh no, it's down here, isn't it? I'm not used to using the actual setting for lattice because I use add-ons all the time now, but yeah, we'll just add this lattice in manually and make sure this is actually fitting the piece here. So just kind of scale it down. Okay. And what we need to do on this guy, the main cube, we're not really a cube anymore, but this main piece is make it have a good enough geo so that way it actually deforms properly. So we're going to go ahead, add in like 5 loops there. We'll add in 3 there so everything's pretty square. And then we can do like 3 in there. So now it's all pretty much square and ready to be deformed. So to get this ready to use with the lattice, what we need to do is add in a lattice modifier. So we'll go to add modifier, we're going to go to lattice, which is right here. We're going to choose the lattice as our object, and basically we can go into the lattice and increase the resolution. So maybe UVW is basically XYZ, just so that way it's not redundant and gets confusing. So X, we'll do 1, Y, we'll do 1, and then Z, we'll do like 2. So there we go. So now we're ready to deform this thing. So what I'm going to do is tab into edit mode for this one, and actually we probably don't even need any on that axis, to be honest with you. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. We're going to pull this back a bit. We're going to pull this one forward a bit. Pull this back just a bit, and what we're going to do on this part is scale it a bit on the Y, pull this back somewhat. Let me think. Move this one up on the X. Scale this area up on the Y to kind of make it wider. It's not terrible. I'm trying to think how I might want to do this. I want to scale this a bit more on the X axis. So you know what? Let's scale both of these a bit on the X to make it a bit skinnier. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and shade it smooth and turn on our auto smooth just to kind of see the base layout here, and it looks pretty decent. This is a bit too wide for me, so what I'm going to do is scale this down and instead scale this this area in right here, and that should be decent enough. Let's take these 2 vertices, move those back, take these 2 and move these back as well. And we're pretty much close to what I'm going for. It's a bit too much. You can see the auto smooth isn't picking it up until we move that back a bit. So I'm just trying to keep it balanced. So maybe what I'll do is pull this out some more but counteract it by moving this out as well. Or we could simply, if we don't want to do any of that, simply adjust the auto smooth angle a bit higher. Let's hide this real quick. This is pretty decent. What I think I'll do is take these 2 vertices and move them out just a bit more. And we'll do like, I don't know, round that up Okay, this looks pretty good. Right, so this is just a very rough block out. At this point we can go ahead and apply our lattice if we're happy with it, which I think I am, but before we do that, what we're going to do is make this a bit more high resolution so it's not as blocky and low poly. So to do that, if we were to apply a subsurf modifier with Control 2, you're going to notice it rounds out pretty nicely because it's all quads, but it's too organic looking. It's not really hard surface. So what we're going to do instead is simply apply a crease to all the corners here. Easiest way to do that is to go into edit mode here. Actually, we're probably going to need to apply the lattice for this part, so if you're worried about it, you can make a backup, but I'm not worried about it, so we'll apply it. We're going to go to edit mode and go to select, and then select sharp edges like that. I don't want to select these. The only reason this is getting picked up is simply because the angle threshold was a bit too high. If I were to do this again, I could easily tweak this setting right here so it doesn't actually pick up. So yeah, basically the same auto smooth angle. Okay, cool. So, oops. We have the selection now. We're going to go ahead and press Shift E and drag this all the way up. That's going to give us a full crease, and we can kind of adjust the factor. Generally, I only go between values of 0 and 1. Rarely do I go in between. So now if we run subsurf, it's going to hold these edges together very nicely for us. It's not going to actually round them out. It's only going to increase the resolution of any area without a crease, so everywhere else we actually want to increase the res. So we're going to go ahead and press Control 1 or maybe Control 2, and that's going to really smooth it out. As you can see, here's the before, here's the after, much better. So what we want to do is real quick go into wireframe, go to viewport display, and then click on wireframe, and we're going to turn off this optimal display and really see how dense this thing is. So this is with 1 level, this is with 2, and it's really all up to you to figure out exactly how high you want to go, if this is a game asset, kind of, you know, how much of a headache you want to deal with and what it's for. So in this case, I'm just going to be doing this as a simple render, not for a game asset or anything, although on my YouTube you may have seen I use this as a game asset, but for this specific tutorial I'll show you how to render it and model it, which I haven't shown before. So what I think I'll do is, instead of going to 1, I'll just leave it at 2 because I'm not too worried about the poly count in this case. Perfect, so if you're happy with that, you can go ahead and apply the subsurf. If you're worried about it, what you could do is simply duplicate it and then move it to a backup collection, which I don't know why. Does this thing... There we go, sometimes this turns off, but yeah, if you're worried about it, you can make a backup collection for it and you'll be fine. And yeah, from there you can go ahead and apply your subsurf, and now we have a pretty high res mesh, but it's really smooth and looks pretty good. So notice how the edges aren't rounded out now. If you really wanted to take care of that, you could of course apply a bevel modifier, do like 3 segments, drop the amount like that, harden the normals, and change this over to angle, and you could bevel them out like that, which I think is exactly what I'll do in this case. So yeah, it looks pretty good. Alright, so next thing I want to do is make a piece here in the front. So we're going to go ahead and add in a cylinder, Shift A, mesh cylinder, 64 vertices. We'll go ahead and smooth it out, auto smooth, and rotate this guy into place. And just kind of put this here for now. We'll probably make it a bit more exciting later on, but what we're going to do for now is just pull one of these and just kind of get it into place. I'm going to also bevel the bottom part, so if we bevel it, you're going to see there's like a constraint. The clamp's going to kick in, or lack thereof, and we don't have a lot of room to chamfer. So what I would do is Shift G coplanar, and then Shift G coplanar, and press the F key to fill them into an n-gon, because on flat surfaces we don't need all that extra geo unless we're going for like an organic subsurf or something, but in this case it's hard surface, so who cares. And now we'll have a lot more space to chamfer. We might have to do the same on the front. Maybe we'll dissolve this out. Actually, we can just dissolve out the whole thing, who cares. We'll come in here and dissolve these areas out as well. So we have buffer, Control B, get a nice chamfer there on the front, looks pretty good. Bit too much maybe, or just do that. There we go. Trying to think of what else I might want to do on this piece. We could champ for the back as well, why not? We'll go back here. Gonna have to dissolve out these areas so that way we have buffer, Control X, because if we don't, notice how it kind of hits it, which isn't good, but if we dissolve this out then we should be pretty much fine. So we'll go ahead and champ for right there. Pretty cool. Next, what I'd like to do is maybe hop into the top view here, and what we're gonna do is go to the Edit tab and turn on the extra objects add-on, I believe it's called. It comes with Blender. Go to the add-ons panel, turn on the Add Mesh Extra Objects tool, and if you turn that on, then what you're going to get is this option to add in a vertex. So we're going to go down here, add in a single vert, and simply, oh geez, make sure this is on the top, and we're going to do something like this: extrude down, extrude over, and then fill this in with the F key, and simply extrude that down a bit. Let's also rotate this. Let's reset the origin, and then rotate this around the X a bit, and we can even view this from over here. And what we're going to do is simply, with bool tool turned on, Control minus to run a difference boolean. Let me turn off face orientation so I can see it. Okay, so now we have a bit more room to kind of scale this up and play with it, so I'm going to move this over a bit. Let me go ahead and adjust the auto smooth angle like that. I'm just kind of playing with shapes here, nothing crazy, trying to get it to look decent without making the mesh like super awful or something. So really just trying to get in here and scale this up a bit. Let me take this face and this edge right here. Actually, no, that's not what I want to do. Could maybe bevel it, get something like that. That's actually pretty cool. We could bevel that. All I'm doing here is playing with shapes, so there's no like right or wrong to this portion. Just kind of do what you want. This looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and mirror this to the other end. So we'll add a mirror modifier. Add a mirror, we'll go on the y-axis like this, and bisect and flip to get that effect. And there we go. One of the most efficient and cleanest ways to kind of practice and understand topology, curvature, shapes, and just Boolean and bevel management is to play with shapes that are on very organic and curved surfaces. That's probably one of the best ways to really get deep understanding of 3D and how all these tools work. So I definitely recommend playing with shapes and kind of understanding like which values work for auto smooth, how low you have to go, in what situations you might have to mark the sharps manually, things like that. And kind of figuring out when you need to go destructive versus when you don't. Really good exercise. Anyways, I'm pretty happy with that result. It's not too bad. Next I'm going to go ahead and go here to the top view. We're going to add in a cube and scale this guy down. Move this up. And come in here. Let's apply the rotation and scale. Control A for that, of course. And take these guys right here. Control B. And I'll give this like, I don't know, 10 segments should be enough. Bring that up, and then same for the back here. What we're gonna do, I'll just bevel, if I can actually select it, this area, and just so we can see it, we'll go ahead and run our, actually before we do that, shade this one smooth, and then run your difference like that. It's a bit too big, isn't it? So we'll go ahead and move this over just a tad bit. Okay, these bevels are way too big. I'm going to go ahead and undo that. I don't like how big those bevels were, so just make these pretty tiny. Same for right here, pretty tiny. Shade it smooth. You don't really have to do auto smooth for the cutters, but I like doing it just because. And then we'll come in here and scale this down. Yeah, this is much cleaner. The bevel's a lot smaller and a more of like a hard surface shape to it, so pretty good. Let's go ahead and add a solidify modifier to this. So add a modifier solidify and simply tweak this just a bit, maybe even thickness like that. We'll do 0.01. Nope, we'll do the one before, 0.013. Next, actually, instead of hiding that, what we can do is run another one on the inside of here. So we could just recut, or to kind of speed things up, what I like to do is simply duplicate, and we'll hide the other one. And with this one, which isn't actually the Boolean one, we can simply scale this guy down and recut in here, but turn off the solidify like that, and then just kind of tweak it manually. Scale it a bit on the Y. If it really bothered you how even it was, you could simply inset like these areas and then re-extrude it, but I don't think it's really worth your time, so we'll give a little bit of buffer in the back there, and then here on the front a little bit of buffer as well. Maybe a bit less. Actually, you know what? It's good where it is. So next thing I'd like to do here in the back is make this, I don't know, a bit more exciting, I guess. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the Boolean corresponding to this cut right here. So whichever one this is, I guess the first one. I try to leave things as non-destructive as possible until I absolutely have to apply, so we'll just go ahead and apply there. What I'm going to do is this is going to be catching the bevel when we add one, so let's move that up a bit. Because when we run a bevel, it's going to bevel right here, and it might overlap if it's too close like that. So just kind of prepping for the future, but what we're going to do is come in here and run a chamfer, Control B. Actually, better idea. I don't want to do it destructively like this, because obviously we can, but we're going to have to really get in here and start cleaning things up, and it's going to be a pain. It's actually a lot easier to do this non-destructively, and you'll see why. So what I'm going to do is for both of these sides, although we could just symmetrize, let's apply the mirror, by the way. That one's not locked in, is it? Actually, whenever you apply a modifier low in the stack, it acts as if it's on the top, so we might have to apply this first, but we can just symmetrize at the end of the day, so no big deal. What I'm going to do is select this area. We're going to apply a new vertex group, so go in here, click plus, and then click assign, and we'll just select and deselect to make sure it worked. Okay, so now what we're going to do is add a bevel modifier, and what we're going to do with this bevel modifier, and which one does this correspond to? Is this the whole mesh? Ah, I see. Okay, it looks like clamp overlap's kicking in, so let's go ahead and turn this off. I forgot we added this, so let's go ahead and just kind of drop that a bit. The reason this it kicked in was because clamp overlap was probably kicking in with some of these really close areas here and getting overlaps, so I tend to just turn it off. It's kind of a waste of time. I can tweak things manually. I don't need Blender fixing it. Yeah, this is why clamp kicked in, because of this right here. Clamp is saving you from that issue, but also not doing too much. So we'll go ahead and just kind of move that a bit and do all the rest later. But yeah, for now what I want to do, here's another one. We have like 3 in one area. We can go ahead and merge that together. Okay, back to the original point. What we're going to do is add another bevel modifier. We're going to set this one to vertex group. Choose the vertex group. Turn off our clamp overlap. Do like actually no, one segment's fine. And let's move this one maybe not up there. Okay, that one doesn't really want to work with us well, does it? Let's see. We might have to play with the angle a bit. It's not really helping, is it? Okay, instead of doing that, we're probably gonna have to... I'm curious as to why this is beveling in such a way, because we already have that Boolean applied now, don't we? Interesting. We have this one, which is on the front. That one as well. So it looks like a conflict of bevels is what's happening here. So what I might do instead is simply change this one over from angle to weight. And then what we can do from there... Okay, this one's for that. We can swap these again. And then that's a little bit more reasonable. Let me turn on this vertex group again. I'm curious. Oh, is it because it's missing? It's missing a vertex right here. It's because we merged that one together. Let's assign that. There we go. I was wondering what the heck was happening, but that's the answer. Okay, still a bit iffy, but the reason I wanted to do it this way with the non-destructive bevel is because now I don't have to deal with the actual geo of the chamfer. I can simply come in here, and it's much easier to slide things out of the way and, you know, merge things together. Just a hell of a lot easier. So just going to kind of keep doing that. You know, you can tweak the size of the bevel if you don't want it to be too big. You can adjust it, but I like the size it's at, so I'm just going to keep going in here and work on cleaning this up. So maybe we'll dissolve that out, dissolve this area out, but it's kind of collapsing the mesh, isn't it? So we'll have to select this a bit more manually. Dissolve this area out and make a little bit more room for that chamfer right there. There we go, almost done. This can probably be moved up or simply merged here with auto merge, and a little bit down here as well. Let's see, let's join this one together. That didn't help too much now, did it? This is a bit annoying right here. I'm not really a fan of this. I could slide this down. You know what? That's what I'll do. I'll take these edges right here and just kind of merge them down, and that should take care of the problem. So not too bad. You can notice how this isn't getting picked up right here. So what we could do is like mark that area. Well, I did it with hard ops right there, but you can mark it manually by doing Control E and mark sharp, like all the way around. But I'd rather just go in here and kind of tweak the auto smooth angle a bit. But notice how now it's picking up everything else. So kind of a limitation right there. We'd probably have to simply go in and apply our bevel, which is what we'll do right now. Now that we're done with it, apply the bevel, and it's going to pick up anyways. So there we go. If you really want to get things to mark properly, you can just Control E and mark it sharp. Not really a huge issue. Okay, let's go back to this bevel right here, and we can change this back to angle because I think Blender is going to be happier with us that way, but it might not work out perfectly because some of these angles here might not actually catch, but in this case they're doing okay, so I'm not going to worry too much yet. Let's make them a bit bigger though, and turn off shadow. Notice how right here this edge right here isn't getting picked up. So this is a situation in which we could drop the angle a bit, or drop the angle a bit until it picks up. And in this case it works okay, but it might also pick up areas that we don't want it to pick up. So in those cases you could always go in here and use a bevel weight. Go into the item panel and use a bevel weight, and actually you could just select all the sharp edges and give it a bevel weight and use the weight limit method. And you can do that type of thing, but I'm not going to worry about it. Let's leave this set to angle because we can simply drop that. And there we go. Let's make the bevel a bit bigger. We'll do 0.007. Pretty good. This area right here is a bit messy. As you can see, we have some conflicts. I'm going to go ahead and apply these two booleans as well. I'm happy with where they are, so we'll do that. We have a mess to kind of clean up here, so just kind of dissolve out the excess geo that we don't need. So same on, we still have the mirror applied, but that's good because everything will get picked up from this side over to this side. So down here, let's go ahead and merge that up. Merge this one up as well. Move that one over. This thing's looking pretty good, and we're not even that far in, which is even better. It's probably not going to be like a super long tutorial, but it'll definitely be enough to get you up to speed with this type of workflow. This right here is nasty. Let's see what we can do to clean this one up. What I'm going to do is maybe, you know what, we could just move these in, move this one in as well. And let me turn off the bevel, see what's happening here. Ah, we have another duplicate vert. Let's go ahead, slide that one down. There we go. It's a little bit pinchy, isn't it? Not really a fan of that pinchiness right there. let's see, let me undo this. It's probably me being too OCD about it, but yeah, we'll just leave it alone, not really a big deal. Move this one down. Yeah, bevels are generally pretty, you know, beaten down anyways, so I'm not going to stress about that. It's probably because it's moving in at a pole, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edges going into one vert, so there's always going to be some sort of complication on bevels like that. Much like with subsurf, it gets pinchy. Same idea with bevels, so I'm not going to stress about that one. These two are a bit close, so we'll just go ahead and kind of slide those over. Same with these. You could merge them, but not going to. Looking pretty good. This is a bit... No, that's fine actually. Just kind of make that nice and straight. There we go. Next thing I want to do is make some sort of pipes here in the side. Just we'll do the base layout for now, then clean them up later. So let's go ahead and press Shift A, curve. We're going to go ahead and add a path. Rotate this 90 degrees. And by the way, I think path is default with Blender, but if it's not, you just have to turn on the Add Mesh Extra Curves add-on. It comes with Blender, so some of these you might not have if that's not turned on. But path, anyways, I believe comes with vanilla Blender, so yeah, we'll go ahead and scale this. Let's move this down here a bit. Scale it down some more. A little bit more. What we're going to do is extrude this over on the x-axis. Actually, move that a bit and then extrude this over on the x. We could dissolve that out, move that up, subdivide this, and simply go to geometry here in the curve settings and increase the depth right here under bevel. Make this pretty big, move this over, and Control 1 to run a subsurf on it. Make it a bit less so that way it doesn't pinch in the bottom there. And if it does, you can always kind of tweak this. You can move this forward or you can move this down. I'm going to move this forward just a bit to make it a bit more smooth. And then what I'll do is simply add a mirror modifier, and we're going to mirror across the y-axis and choose this as our mirror object, like that. Now we have some cool little pipes going on, and maybe what we could do is select this vertex and Shift S and go to cursor to selected and add in a cylinder. 64 vertices is fine, and really to scale this guy down until we have like a nice little, you know, area for it to connect to. And same idea for the connection point. We could rotate this, duplicate it and rotate it, and move this into place. Kind of like that. And just to keep this on the top of the grid, we'll go ahead and move that right up here. There we go. And you know the drill, we'll go ahead and let's join these together. You don't have to, but I don't think it's going to hurt us, so if we want to separate them later, we can. Let's go ahead and add a mirror modifier. We'll go to y-axis and choose this as our mirror object again, the main piece, and we are looking pretty good. I'd like to go ahead and apply the scale and rotation on this piece and bevel it, chamfer it rather, to get that effect on the front. And also what I want to do is something a bit more exciting. I'd like to add in a cube here and simply go to cube, scale this down. Actually, let's reset the 3D cursor, Shift S, cursor to origin. We'll add in a cube, and I'm just going to kind of put this right here on the top, right about here, and we're going to run a difference boolean, Control minus, and all I want to do now is simply Shift D, rotate this negative 30 degrees. You know what, we'll do negative 45 like that, and let's run a mirror on this piece so that way it mirrors. We'll do mirror, y-axis, and then bisect and flip like that. And now we have this cool little design going on, as you can see. I do want to make these a bit smaller, so scale that in, and all we're going to do is simply bevel these areas here. Let's make sure we apply the rotation and scale. Give this like 10 segments or so. And do I want to go all the way in? Right here is okay. And there we go. Now I want to go ahead and make a nice little slice in the side here. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead, do Shift A, single vert, add single vert. Going to put it right to about here. Let's make sure it's kind of in the front so we can actually see it in the front. I'm going to extrude to here, and then extrude up to here. Fill this in, and then extrude across. And maybe run a small little bevel right here. Cool, let's go ahead and shade this smooth, and then Control / on the numpad to run a slice operation. And as you can see, it's getting pretty distorted because our mesh, our poly count is pretty high here, so it's going to happen. But you know, what can you do? You can make it as clean as you can off the get-go, but there's definitely going to be limitations here. Generally, you want to make sure the bevel matches the rough poly count of the base mesh. So make sure if this mesh here is really low poly, then you're not using like 1,000,000 bevels, because then it won't match up very well. But in this case, 10, even 10 might be a bit much. Let's go ahead and undo this. Let's do like, I don't know, 6. I think 6 will match it better. And then what we can do is go back to wireframe, shade this smooth, and then run a slice operation, and now you can kind of see it's a bit more manageable here. Not too bad. I think the normals are flipped. I think that's why it looks so bad here. So let me try to let me take this cutter, select it, and then Shift N, and that was the exact problem, is why it looked bad, because the normals were inverted. So if you get like weird distortions like that, it's usually because the normals are incorrect, and you can always check that by going to face orientation and turn that on or off. And anything that's red is bad. So inset booleans in Blender default are much of a bitch to make, so what I usually do is I run a slice and then I scale up the slice manually, and it basically gives you the same exact effect. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here, is simply scale that up and move this up a bit. Let's apply the boolean in the mirror here and just kind of move that guy up a little bit. Or we can make it smaller and put it right here in the center, but not too sure how much I like that to be. So we have this as an option, or we have this as an option. I think I like this one a bit better. Even though it's a bit smaller, it's a lot cleaner to work with, so I'm going to leave it at that. And basically at this point we can apply our slice if we want to. Now if you try to apply the boolean, it's not going to let, actually it will let you. Interesting. Sometimes if you're unable to apply a slice operation, you usually have to go in here and make the user unique, but in this case it looks like it's already pretty unique, so we can just go right in here and apply the boolean and really get down in here and clean this stuff up. So let's isolate this one with / on the numpad, merge that in, and then merge this in as well. Let's merge that one up. Looks pretty good. And we're going to do the same thing to, actually this side is fixed because we have a mirror modifier applied, so even better. Same for this one. Let's apply the boolean, clean this one up, and we should have a mirror modifier taking care of this side. And just a few more problems right here. We'll slide this one out, get rid of that, and this one's looking pretty good. So any other issues you might see in your version you need to clean up, obviously, but that's easy enough to do. Now I do want to make sure there's a nice fusion between this piece and this one, because right now it's that's not the case. So what I'm going to do is simply move this in a bit manually. We'll remove the bevel because when we union this, it's going to take on the bevel from this piece. Otherwise we're going to get duplicates, so we don't want that. So let's select this and then shift click this and press Control+ on the numpad, to run a union, and we're going to get a nice bevel between the two now. Obviously we'll have to clean that up, so right off the bat we can just actually let me make a duplicate now, probably a good time. Move this to the backup collection and apply the boolean right here. And I always like to turn off the bevel for these. This is pretty messy on this part, so merge that in, dissolve that vert out. This can be moved up, this can be moved down, or maybe up. We'll move it down. This area is okay. This is going to be a bit tricky right here, but it should be alright. We'll leave this alone, I think. Let's dissolve that out and turn the bevel back on. Yeah, this is a bit tricky, isn't it? We can slide that down just a bit. Maybe not. You know what we'll do? We'll merge these at the center with the M key. Oh, we have a duplicate. That's why it's acting up. So let's get rid of that. Slide this over. There we go. And up here it looks like we have some edges that are a bit too close, so we can just dissolve these out. Control X. Sometimes it's really hard to see those, so just keep an eye out for any slight distortions going on, you know, if you see any of these, and usually it's a clear indication that those need to be removed. You could also, to fix these pinched and triangulated corners right here, you could simply go to the geometry panel and change the outer miter type to an arc to make that a bit cleaner. I'm always a fan of doing that. Other than that, this thing is looking pretty clean. Next thing I would like to do is maybe add some handles here in the side. You can kind of imagine this might get picked up or something. So to do that, I'm going to it's going to be a bit tricky to do, but we'll manage. I'm going to go ahead and add in a cube. Scale this cube down a bit on all the axes, then a bit on the X. And we're going to go into face mode and make sure the option for align rotation to target is enabled. And then what we can do, if that's turned on, is we can press G and then hold Control. And it's going to actually snap to that face. So we can actually move this along the local axes now. And scale it down. See that? And we can also rotate around the local axes too, which is even cooler. And now what I'm going to do is simply shift click on here, Control minus for that. We're going to go ahead and Control A to apply. Actually, no, don't apply the rotation, because then we won't be able to scale or rotate along the local axes, but apply the scale. Control A, apply scale, so now we can get in here and bevel these really easily. So we'll do that. That looks good. I actually want to... We have duplicate bevels going on, don't we? Interesting. Need to increase that angle a bit. That should be good. Okay, what I think I'm going to do is actually turn this into a slice. So Control / is what I want to do instead. So Control / on the numpad to run a slice like that. And then we'll go ahead and apply scale and bevel these edges right here. Pretty simple. And drop or increase the angle a bit for that bevel so it doesn't go crazy. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and apply the boolean on this one. Once again, if it doesn't let you apply the boolean, then you can go in here to the object data panel and click on the number right here. It'll fix it. We'll apply that boolean and simply I to inset, E to extrude back. And I'm going to make this bevel a bit smaller for this specific piece, so like that. And increase the angle on this one, as well as the auto smooth to pick everything up. Okay, cool, and this is looking pretty good. Now what I want to do is simply add in a handle to this piece. So we'll do the same thing as before. We're going to add in a Bezier or path. What do I want to do? Let's do a path, because the path is most static and we can rotate it easily. So same idea, we're going to make sure we're in face mode, align rotation to target, snap it here. We're going to really have to scale it down though. And get this guy right in there and just kind of rotate it. I would recommend using Cablerator for this because you can just go in and click and you're done, and it's super easy. But I'm trying to keep this all vanilla because that is of course what this tier promises. But Cablerator is a really cool add-on. It's like 10 bucks, worth every penny. But if you want to do it the old-fashioned way, which in that case we'll be doing here, we're just going to kind of have to align it manually and extrude these in. It's all about saving time, guys. If you're making 20 bucks an hour and you're doing something that you could spend $10 on that saves you 3 hours of time that you could spend working, I mean, there's your answer. It's just kind of basic economics, so that's how I think of things. Most of you on this Patreon understand that, though sometimes I still have to explain that to people that, you know, you are spending money, but you're saving more money in the long run. So some people just don't like to listen to it, so what can you do? Let's rotate this around the local x-axis, or whatever axis it is for you. And there we go. It's looking pretty good now, I'd say. Let's move this up a bit. Scale it up. It's a bit sloppy. Okay, cool. Now we can go ahead and bring that up. Bit too big. Scale that guy down. Maybe run a subsurf on it and a little bit bigger. There we go. We'll add a mirror modifier to it too. And we're going to choose this as the mirror object. So y-axis, choose this. And we are looking good. So this is actually, you know, pretty decent. We could stop here if we wanted to, keep detailing it, whatever. I was debating if I wanted to do a full-on game asset tutorial. And honestly, I think it might be more beneficial to you guys because there comes to a point where I've taught so much vanilla modeling stuff that it's just, I don't want it to be the same boring stuff each month. I actually want this Patreon to be something you can learn from, something new and useful every single month, because you're paying me money and I'm providing you content, and I want to make sure we're both getting what, you know, each party deserves. So it's kind of a give and take relationship. So you're giving us money and I want to you know, give you back really powerful information, so that way you know, you're spending your money wisely. So what I think I'll do is make this into a game asset for you guys, because a lot of you really want to learn that. Let's make a few more details in here before we actually go down that route. So what I'm going to do is hop into top view and make a few more notches or something in here to make it exciting. So let's add in a mesh cylinder. We'll get this like 32 verts because this one's going to be so small we're not going to notice it. So let's move this up, scale this down, and maybe run a difference boolean like that. We can always scale it down if we need to. Let's see, pull it there. Looks good. Maybe a few little notches here in the front, so we can go in here, add a cube, scale the cube down on the y-axis, scale it on the z, and a bit on the x as well. So let's go ahead and move this forward. We'll run a difference boolean like that, make a few little notches on the front, and move this to a better location. Trying to think, do I want to bevel this area? Might look pretty good, so we'll go ahead and do that. And move this down a bit. Looks okay. A bit too big, I'd say, so I'm going to simply scale those down and move them over a little bit. Over on the y-axis until we have no sort of artifacts. Yeah, there we go. And it also looks like this bevel is not quite picking up, or maybe there's an overlap, so we're simply going to move this back a little bit and increase that auto smooth angle. And we still have quite a few more distortions there, don't we? So let me find, where is that cutter? Which one was it? This one right here. We're going to simply move this until we find a better location. Right here, there seems to be no distortions, as you can see. But we should probably move this down a little bit. It's a little bit too close to that edge up there, so move that down. And I think right here might be an even better spot. So as like a base modeling tutorial, I think this is enough. I'm sure most of you have the skill set to go in, model more stuff, add more detail, do whatever you need to do. So to save time and get on with the video, I want to go ahead and start by making this into an optimized game ready asset. So first thing we need to do is take a few considerations, and let me go ahead and explain those. First thing is the poly count, second thing are the bevels, and third things are the booleans, and I'm going to kind of go through all of those. So whenever you make a game asset, it's probably most ideal to join everything together, for most meshes at least. So what we're going to do is simply get everything ready. So I'm going to actually save this as a separate file just so that way I can always go back to this one if I need to. So let's go ahead and save a copy, and I'm just going to name this tier 3 vanilla underscore backup, like that. So now we can go in here and really destroy this thing if we are done with it. So, well, when I say destroy, I don't mean literally destroy, but get down to the nitty gritty. So what I'm going to do is first of all apply all the booleans here. So get in here, apply the booleans. If you have hard ops, just run a smart apply and call it a day. Apply the mirror, this one right here. We're not going to actually union this because it's going to be a game asset and it's usually not really necessary, so we're going to leave this as a separate object and we'll run our own bevel on it. As a matter of fact, we could simply Control-C, copy selected modifiers and copy the bevel. If you don't have the Control-C command, just turn on the copy attributes add-on. It comes with Blender. Alright, so this one right here, we'll apply the sub D and actually just turn this into a mesh. Control-A, visual geometry to mesh. This one right here, we'll apply the mirror. What else are we missing? These pipes right here. Turn that into a mesh as well. And you know what? This might save us some time. Let me show you. So these pipes are going to be pretty high poly, and we're going to want low poly pipes for a game asset. So what I'm going to do is, instead of applying it, what we're going to do is make a backup. So Shift D, and I'm just going to call this pipes or handles backup, and for this one we'll just remove the sub D to save time and apply the mirror and just turn that off. Same for this one, Shift D, remove the subsurf, apply the mirror, and call this pipes underscore backup. Okay, cool, so now we can actually get in here and apply these. It's just going to save us some time because if the subsurf is enabled, then it's going to by default add a lot of geo, and I don't want to have to go in here and spend like 5 minutes dissolving things when I can simply remove the subsurf modifier and make it low poly to begin with. So that'll be good. What else do we need to do? We need to join these together. Let's apply the mirror here. Join these together. Other way around maybe. We'll do pipe and then these. We'll go ahead and copy our bevel modifier. And actually, you know what? Before we do that, I just noticed these guys need to be inset. So I to inset, E to extrude, right click, and then Alt S to bring those in along the normals. So now we kind of have like a hole for them to go into, so it looks a bit more natural. Join these together. Get the bevel on there. And we can actually join these pieces with the main mesh as well. So we'll do that. Looks like the bevel overlap is a bit too big, so just going to drop that ever so slightly. We can try 0.006 or 0.005 maybe. Let me turn the cavity back on. We also need to join this, apply the mirror with this, Control J. And what else do we need to do? Join the handle as well, Control J. And it looks like the auto smooth is kind of messing with this, as you can see, or maybe the bevel. So what I'm going to do is bring the bevel up a bit and bring the auto smooth up a bit, like that. Issue here is we're kind of losing this connection, so we're going to kind of have to play with the angles a bit. Maybe 18 degrees will be fine. 18.5. Let's try 18.5 on each of them. Can we get a little bit higher? Okay, yeah, this is going to be a problem. See, actually, maybe not. See how the moment this kicks in, it destroys this piece? This is where the angles get kind of tricky and weights come in to be a little bit more handy. So this bevel's picking up on this handle, so I'm trying to think if I should spend the time applying a weight. It might be a good idea, so let's do that. Let's change the limit method over to weight, and now we can manually select the areas we want to use. So let's go to select sharp edges. We're going to pick up the slack, get all these areas here. Blender did an okay job at first. And then this area we need to select manually because it's pretty steep. This right here needs selected, this right here. Down here on the bottom. What else are we missing? Let's see. These two right here. That looks good. So now what we can do is literally just come in here and bring the mean bevel weight up to a value of 1, and now we have full control. So now we're only beveling any areas we have marked with a mean bevel weight, and since this pipe isn't marked, then we're pretty much set on that end of things. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. So at this point, we need to clean up any artifacts that we might have. So in that case, I'm going to turn on face orientation, check for any red spots in here, which I don't think we have any. I don't know what the heck's happening down here though. Do we have like an overlap? Oh no, this just isn't marked. Make sure everything's marked there. And I think this will actually be okay. So yeah, this looks good. I found that for game assets, what hardened normals does is it applies a sharp, whereas weighted normal applies this more procedurally. So if you want to avoid using sharps for whatever reason, you can turn this off and instead use a weighted normal modifier, and it might give you some better results, but usually it doesn't matter too much. Alright, at this point, this is going to be our high poly version. So what I'm going to do is rename this to mesh underscore high, so we know it's the high poly, like that. We can kind of clean this up. This lattice can go, we can delete that out. I don't know what these two are. We can delete out some of these cutters here. I didn't organize these into a cutters collection, so it's going to be a bit messy, but what we can really do is let's deal with the low poly first. So we'll deal with all the cutters later, but what I want to do at this point is duplicate this, and this one is going to be our low poly version. So let's rename this to mesh underscore low. And to fix this up is really simple. All we need to do is make this more optimized for a game asset. Right now we have about 17,000 verts without the bevel being applied, and that's way too much. So let's go ahead and remove the bevel and weighted normal on this one, and just isolate the view with / on the numpad, and play with the auto smooth a bit. I guess we have the same problem here, so we'll go ahead and mark a sharp. Control E and mark sharp like that. Okay, so we need to get in here and clean up a lot of this geo, and a lot of this geo we don't actually need. So we're going to remove the edges that don't affect the curvature. Like right here, these edges are providing us 0 value. They're not doing anything to hurt the curvature. So, or save it rather. So what we're going to do is Control X to dissolve it out. And notice how this did absolutely nothing. All it did was it saved us some geo. We went from 17,412 verts to 17,168. So this is the process that we use to optimize our assets for game engines. So that's all we're going to do here. A lot of this is pretty, if we go to the front, it's pretty planar, so we can really get in here and maybe dissolve out every other set. See how that looks. Actually, not this one. Let's do something like this. We can probably get rid of these as well. It's not hurting the curvature too much, as you can see. If we go back into, it's not terrible, so we'll leave it at that. What else could we do? This is going to be a little bit tricky, because if we dissolve too many of these, then actually no, might be okay. So let's go ahead and get rid of all these then, so long as the curvature remains intact. We're going to need to deselect that bottom edge, Control X. See, this is kind of holding the curvature together, so I'm going to go ahead, see if I can't get a more practical solution here. Maybe join these up. Doesn't want to work well, does it? Join these up instead. Join this up and make this into a quad maybe. And make that little triangle right there, should be fine. Let's see, can I dissolve this out now? Looks like I can. This is still holding the curvature together, so maybe not. Gotta be careful with that. I think I'll leave that one in the middle. It's not really hurting too much, so we'll turn the high poly back on. So here's the high and low. It's still following the curvature pretty well, I'd say. I don't think this will hurt us too much, but I'm not sure. So what I'm going to do instead is undo that. I really want to undo this and make sure this thing is prepped, so instead of dissolving every single one, I'm just going to do every other one. So maybe what I'll do is go here to here to here to here and still retain some of the curvature somewhat. We're going to join this up and turn this into a quad to keep it clean. We're going to go from here to here to here to here. And this should be a lot cleaner now. Yeah, there we go. It's following the curvature a bit better, so we'll do that. And for the other side, we're just going to symmetrize, so don't worry about the other side. We're going to come in here, same idea. Clean some of this up. What am I missing? Deselect that. Okay, that's holding the curvature. That's probably okay. Perfect, much better. This right here we could leave or dissolve, doesn't matter. Could leave it as an N-gon actually, it's probably fine. These caps we're not going to see, so we'll go ahead and remove those. We'll never see them in a game. Okay, what else are we missing? We went down pretty low, we're at about, what, 17,000 still. But that's because these handles are extremely high poly. So what we're going to do here, this is for the, where's that handle we made? The handle backup. Okay, what we're going to do is remove these handles here. Remove the handles and remove the pipes because they're way too high poly. And notice how that took us from 17,000 verts down to about 4,400. That's a lot, so you got to be careful when you have those high resolution pipes. What we're going to do is take that backup we made and make this even more low resolution. So let's Control A to apply the visual geo to mesh, and this can be made even lower. So what I'm going to do is simply get in here and let me think. Let's do Shift G and do this by direction and increase the threshold a bit. We're going to be limited in that though, so let's try to stick with that. And we'll just kind of remove the bad areas here with the circle select tool. Press the C key, middle mouse button to paint those out, and we can pick up the rest manually. Make sure that's selected, and we'll just mirror to the other side, so don't worry about that. Okay, so let's go ahead and checker deselect, select and then checker deselect. And that's not what I expected to happen. I guess checker deselect doesn't want to work with us that way, so what else? I don't want to have to do this manually. There's got to be an easier way to do this. So checker deselect doesn't seem to want to work with us. So what I'm going to try instead is go into the front view and maybe alt click the set of faces and expand the selection. go into edge mode, check or deselect that way. That's still not what I want. Okay, so none of these are going to work, so what I'm going to do instead is a more practical solution, which is to go to the decimate modifier, and what we're going to do with the decimate modifier is go to unsubdivide, and now if we just simply increase this, it'll give us the result we want. Not as clean because it dissolves these, but I mean, it's probably going to be a bit better than us wasting time the other way. So we'll do that, and that should be okay. I'm going to go ahead and remove this one, delete those vertices, and mirror this to the other side. So add a mirror modifier. We'll do the y-axis like that and apply it, and now we have two low resolution pipes, and these should bake pretty decently on the high poly, so I'm not going to worry about it. Minute details do not need to be worried about. Now this one is the pipes backup, so let's go ahead and apply Visual Geo to Mesh. Same idea for this one. We're going to go ahead and decimate, unsubdivide twice, and apply that decimate modifier. And there we go. Okay, cool. So the last thing to clean up is this area here. So these little connection points are 64 verts. We don't need all that, so we're going to go ahead and select those, and now check or deselect should work fine. Oh, do we have... why did it select those? I only want to select this area. There we go. Try it again. Select and then check or deselect. Control X, and don't mind this side. We'll just go ahead and mirror this piece again. So if it's all joined together, instead of mirroring, you can simply run a symmetry by going to the symmetry panel, go to mesh, and then symmetrize. And in this case, we want to symmetrize from the negative y over here to the positive y over here. So negative y to positive y, and then I'll fix that. There's going to be a symmetry line. We can simply dissolve that one out with Control X. And same for this piece. We're going to go ahead and check or deselect, actually. Only get that one, and then check or deselect. Control X, and we need to expand the selection here, so same exact idea. We're going to need to get this entire set, so what I'm going to do to make this easier, select a few of these, Shift G, and then amount of faces around an edge, maybe direction, or maybe length. No, none of these want to work. We could try face angles. That worked pretty well. And what we're going to do is simply remove the rest. So we'll just press the L key and then deselect like that. And deselect. Actually, no, we need those areas selected as well. Okay, cool. So once you do that, we'll go ahead and check or deselect. We're going to need to offset this by 1. Control X to take care of that. And this area should have been taken care of as well. Maybe not. Maybe we'll do these two separately. So let's go ahead and Control X, do this one separately. How did we do it before? I think we went in, selected a few of these, and then went by the face angles, Shift G, press the L key, and then deselect, and get rid of all the other selections we don't need. Same idea here, check or deselect, Control X, and then symmetrize one more time, mesh, and then symmetrize, remove the symmetry line, and now I think we're at a good spot. We're at about 3,750 verts, which is pretty decent for a game asset. We could go even lower though, so we're going to do that. Just because, why not? This right here, let's remove the handle for a second. Let me hide that. These right here are actually already pretty low resolution, so we'll remove those, or leave those alone rather. These are too many segments, so I'm going to go ahead, Alt-Shift-Click, and Alt-Shift-Click here, Control X. Try not to remove the ends of the bevel because those are holding the angles together. And these, Control X. What happened here? Actually, maybe not this one, because these aren't fully connected. Control X, there we go. This right here should have a connection. Let me actually do that manually. Or does it not want to work with me? What's the issue? Interesting. I'm trying to run a knife cut, but it doesn't want to work with me. And to be honest, this one's not a big deal, but it is bothering me, so I'm going to dissolve this one as well. I don't know what I want. Let's just leave it alone. Screw it, we'll leave it like that. And what else? Can we dissolve anything else here? Maybe these ones? These ones can be lower, so we'll do... notice how if we select these, we're going to be forced to dissolve this and it's going to kind of collapse, so that's fine. We're just going to need to re-merge that. Same for in here. Re-merge this one. Like that. Maybe we'll do this one at a more straightforward location like that. And then bevel on this interior side, so select these. We're almost done, I promise. We'll select these ones. Control X, and then I don't know why we don't have a bevel weight here. Let me turn that up. Bevel weight on that one. And this is probably as good as we're going to get. Now I did notice our mesh high, if we turn the mesh low off, has this piece. This detail can actually be baked in pretty well. So we could add this detail in, but in the mesh low, if you still have that detail kind of embedded, it'll bake into a normal map just fine, because anything like that on a flat face will be baked super easily, so I'm not going to worry about that. I do want to turn the handles back on though. Like that. What else are we... What's going on in here? Oh, I thought there was an issue. Maybe not. Awesome. So we're down to, let's see. We're down to 3,588 verts on this piece as compared to the original one, which has, let's see, 17,000 verts. That's a lot. So we saved a lot of geo here, which is really good. And it might not seem like a lot, but in a game, if these it's going to pile up a lot, right? One high poly mesh might not seem like a lot, but if you do that a lot, the game's going to really get bogged down. So when we're cutting it by almost a fourth, that's pretty good. Alright, I do need to join these pipes together. It looks like they're not joined, so let's do it this way around. We're going to need to tweak the auto smooth here, aren't we? So let me play with that. It's actually an issue, isn't it? We could simply turn off auto smooth and mark everything manually with a sharp, but it's going to take way too long, not worth it. Honestly, this is probably okay. It'll probably bake decently, and if it doesn't, we can always come back into Blender and fix it if we need to. But there's no way I'm going to go all the way up. But also, I do want to mention something. If you're baking, you're going to have to generally turn this off anyways. I don't know why, it just looks better when you have this just completely shaded smooth. Sometimes it looks good, sometimes it doesn't. I'm going to try it with it turned off on the first round though, and just see how it looks. So we have our low poly mesh, as you can see. Also, make sure you join everything together. We missed this one. Let's go ahead and join that. And this piece right here, remove that bevel and join this one up. Okay, cool. So we have the mesh low, and we have the mesh high, which is all joined together. And we're pretty much ready to go into... Wait a second. Let me duplicate this. And make sure the mesh high has this piece as well. Almost forgot about that. There we go. It looks like these both needed it. And I almost forgot this one here. This detail on the front can actually be baked from the high poly one right here. So this... What's happening? Bevel, let me increase the... Actually, it's still set to weight, so let me go in here. Make sure these are marked with a bevel weight. Okay, there we go. Like I was saying, this detail right here can actually be baked onto the high poly. So what I'm going to do is simply fix this. We're going to press M, merge at the center, select all the way around here, M, merge at center, and simply clean this up. Same with this one, M, merge at center, and then M, merge at center again. Clean this one up, get that vertex kind of hanging out as well. Don't forget those. And what we'll do now is simply symmetrize, so mesh and then symmetry. And we have some floating geo here. Delete that. Fill this in. There we go. So yeah, if we turn the high poly back on, notice how the detail, you can kind of see it. This will actually be baked in Substance, so we're not going to worry about that. And we're even lower now. We're down to, actually no, we're higher because we forgot about this one, but no big deal. Can I remove these, or are these already pretty low poly? Yeah, these are pretty low poly. So this is about as good as we're going to get. I'm pretty happy with the result. So what I'm going to do is simply get this thing ready. Let's first of all move the origin point to the 3D cursor at the bottom of the grid, like that. Same for the high poly, just to be consistent. There we go. And actually, I did miss one more thing. These can be even lower poly. I could do the selection trick we did earlier by doing face angles and deselecting everything, but I really can't be bothered right now. I'm just going to go in and do this real quick. Kind of tests your accuracy with clicking, doesn't it? There we go, got them all. And Control X, okay. Now we're ready to bring this guy into Substance. So there's one thing I want to mention. When you're doing hard surface game assets, bevels are obviously still essential. Bevels look really good, and just to make the mesh pop that much better. But bevels also increase the geometry count. If I were to add a bevel right now, we'll do bevel, set this to angle, and do, I don't know, one segment. Notice how we jump from 4,390 verts to over 7,000. It's not a big jump, but it is something. Now you can bake bevels, meaning you can have sharp edges and allow Substance or whatever you're baking in, Marmoset, Blender, I don't care. You can bake bevels on top of hard edges, but it looks really, really bad. Reason being is because much like Blender's bevel shader, let me show you it. Blender's bevel shader actually, we'll go in here. Let me connect that up. And what we're going to do is add a material here. I'm just going to show you real quick. So the bevel shader, what this actually does, if we go into rendered view, is it simulates the effect of a bevel. So if I zoom in, do like 0.01, notice how it looks like we have a small bevel there, but in reality, it's just the shader doing the work. See, if I disconnect this, it's gone. And if you really zoom in on it, it's worse in game assets, but if you really zoom in on it, come on, zoom in, there we go. It's hard to see, but there is a visible hard edge on there. It's harder to see in your rendered view, but trust me, when you're baking it, it's very obvious, and I'm not a fan of it because all the bevel bakes are doing is giving a small shadow around it to make it look like you have a bevel, when in reality that hard edge is still there. So for that reason, the best way to get a clean bevel on a game asset is to run a bevel with one segment only. Reason we're going to do one segment is because 3 is just going to make way too many segments. It's going to make the poly count higher. We're going to set the limit method over here to angle so it doesn't, you know, bevel everything. Actually, no, let's do weight because we had it set to weight before, didn't we? Yeah, we'll do weight, and we're not going to do 3 segments because we're going to go from 6,254 verts up to 10,000. Not worth it. So the best strategy for game assets is to simply run a bevel with one segment with the weighted normals turned on. And that way you still have a bevel. It doesn't look as good as 3 segments, but it's really, really close. It's not that much difference. So when we do game assets, I would highly suggest doing the one segment bevel route with the weighted normals turned on. And when we're doing this, it's still going to bake the bevel of the high poly somewhat, so I'd recommend having the same exact amount from the low poly on the high poly bevel. So we'll copy paste these. Actually, is it a scale issue? I don't know why this is different. Maybe something's not joined together. I don't know. But try to make your bevels roughly the same size on each of them, which I think we already have here, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. But yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to mention here because it's really important, and it's going to save you. So it's up to you. If you want to do a baked bevel, that's fine. I would highly recommend doing the one segment bevel strategy with face weighted normals to get a cleaner result. Also looks like I forgot to run a bevel weight on this one. There we go. And let's see, we need to delete out the face on the inside here. I think we have a face on the inside. Yeah, this can go, we don't need this, so delete out these faces. So yeah, we're good to go. Although the bevel makes the poly count higher, it's worth it because the bevel is going to look a lot better. And if we're running 3 segments, it's just going to be way too high. So at this point, all we need to do is unwrap this mesh because, you know, unwrapping is going to make it look good. Also, we have like a small distortion here. So to fix that, I'm going to run a knife cut up to here, fill this one in, and that should be gone mostly. It's alright. And just to be safe, we're going to run a symmetry one more time on the mesh here. Let's see. Negative Y to positive Y, right? Mesh and then symmetrize. There we go. And maybe clean up a few more of these. Really just trying to conserve space. That's all I'm doing here. We'll get these ones. Control X to dissolve that out. And maybe the one in the middle can go as well. We don't need that. Okay, cool. So 6,000 vertices with a bevel I can live with, so yeah, that should be good. Now what we're going to do is do our unwrap. So to unwrap, easiest way to unwrap hard surface objects is to simply go up here to select, and then select the sharp edges, and pick up the slack again. You could just drop the sharpness to like 30. Pick up the slack, we're going to get this one. This one, the best way to mark a seam is on the harsh edges, so we're going to do that. Make sure we're not missing anything here. Get all those harsh edges in here. Everything. So it looks like it got mostly everything we needed. We're going to go ahead and press Control E, add a seam, and at this point we can go ahead and unwrap. So these pieces right here can probably be baked via a normal map as well. So we're going to go ahead, merge these at the center, merge these at the center as well. M, merge at center, M, merge at center, oops, we'll do it this way, and then just get rid of that extra junk in here, and join that up. And same for these holes in the top, these will be baked via a normal map as well, so merge these at the center, M, and then merge at center, and get rid of this junk as well with Control X, and simply symmetrize one more time. We'll get rid of this one. Okay, cool. And like I said, this detail right here will actually be baked in, this little piece, so we can go ahead and press the L key to delete out this piece right here, and simply do the same for this one. Take this face, merge it at the center, Control click all the way down, merge this one at the center, and get rid of that, and that one should bake in just fine. And I guess we have to symmetrize one more time, don't we? Okay, cool. So this one is definitely done as low poly as we're going to get. Looks like we're set to 3,600 verts, which is good. Shading's a bit messy here, so let me finish this up by running a loop all the way down to fix that up a bit. Wondering why the shading went to crap right here. The weighted normal, interesting. Weighted normal is messing with it. You know what? I'm going to do hardened normals instead. I think the sharp is what's helping it there. Difference between hardened normals and weighted normals is that hardened normal, like I said, runs a sharp. And sharps 100% of the time will fix those issues you might have with shading, so Hard to normals or weighted normals doesn't matter as long as you have the bevel looking clean. Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead, get this thing ready. We're going to have to unwrap it now, so let's go into our UV editor. Going to press the A key and then U to unwrap. This is pretty decent. Now we have to preview it, so to do that, make sure you have a material here. I'll just call this mesh. And to get a preview, we're going to add a new little grid here, 4096. We'll just rename this to grid, UV grid, click OK. Go to the shader editor, object, and what we're going to do is add in an image texture, choose that grid and connect it up. Give that a second to load, connect that up, and now we can actually preview our unwrap. Our unwrap by default here is pretty decent, I like it. Now on the cylinders always get warped because cylinders have to be unwrapped in a different way. Usually we need to run one single seam. What the heck? Turn that off. We usually need to run one single seam around some of these edges here, and looks like these got picked up, which I did not want to happen, so press the L key and then clear the seam. We're going to run one seam right here, one seam right here. Same for this side. Mark the seam. And then for these little cylinders right here, going to get these guys, mark the seam, and unwrap. A little bit better. I'm really not liking this blockiness to it. I think this is going to be problematic, so let me go ahead and just bite the bullet, separate these, run a subsurf, and yeah, run a subsurf, remove the bevel, apply the subsurf, and join this back up. I just think it's going to look better that way. Okay, these pipes right here, we're going to need to fix that. Actually, the unwrap's pretty decent on these, but just to be safe, let me press the L key, clear those seams because it looks like the sharpness picked up on it. I'm going to mark that one, and then mark that one, mark the seam, unwrap that, much better. This is going to be a bit of an issue, so what we're going to do, I don't know why this keeps turning on. What did I do? Must have pressed a button. Anyways, we're going to come in here, mark that as a seam, mark that as a seam, mark these as a seam again, and on this one we're going to go ahead and mark a seam on the bottom, unwrap it again, and we're going to remove the seam on this one. Unwrap that again. There we go. Now this is what I call a good unwrap, because not only do we have pretty decent textile density, the unwrap is also clean. This is a bit warped right here. I'm not too sure what's going on. Maybe we missed something. Let me try running the seam on the inside and remove that one. It shouldn't be warping down there. Maybe we have a face on the bottom that we forgot about. That might be the case. Yeah, I think that's the case. Let me go in here and move this down, -1. Oh, it's all connected, isn't it? No big deal. What we'll do is alt-click this and expand the selection a few times, and then delete whatever's in there out. So now the unwrap should be a bit better. There we go. Then we can just symmetrize that over. Mesh symmetrize. Dissolve that out and re-unwrap. And I think we're good to go. So at this point, go ahead and preview it. Make sure your mesh is exactly where you want it to be. We have a really nice unwrap up here on the main part of the mesh. The whole area looks pretty good. We could, however, remove this seam right here on this portion, except for these areas. Same for this spot. Control E, clear the seam. and make that a bit cleaner of a transition. I don't know why this is turning on. I need to figure that out. Let's try this. That's even good as well. Yeah, it's a lot better. We'll go ahead and do the same thing for this one. Clear out that seam and unwrap it one more time. And this is what I call a good unwrap. Awesome, so now that that's done, we're going to go ahead and make sure our name matches the object data's name. So what we're going to do is go to the green triangle panel, click and drag. Same for the mesh high, click and drag here. Sometimes the data can get confused in other software, so we want to make sure the data is the same as the name of our object. So now what we can do, make sure you have a material on the low poly, and we're ready to simply go to File and then export it. So File, Export FBX, selected objects, and then we're just going to do this as low, or mesh underscore low. And then for the high poly one, we don't need a UV map or anything on this one. This can be just as is. We only need it for baking. And just to be consistent, I'm going to remove the weighted normals and turn on hardened normals instead. And we're going to go to File, Export FBX, selected objects, make this one underscore high instead, and export that. And now we're ready to go into Substance and bake this thing. So now that we're in Substance, what we can do is go to File, New. We're going to do a 4K document resolution. Let's first select our low poly object. Let me find the low poly mesh. Make sure you're importing the low poly one, not the high poly one. 4K document resolution. This is for normal maps. DirectX and OpenGL are like different orientations. DirectX, it doesn't really matter. You can easily flip it, but OpenGL and DirectX doesn't matter too much. I'll do DirectX, click OK. Texture set settings. What we're going to do now, right off the bat, is bake out our maps. So we're going to go in here to the Bake Mesh Maps option, click it, select our high poly mesh in this little button right here, high definition meshes, click on that, select the high poly one. 4K output size is very important. That's going to be a nice resolution. And here we want to match based off of the name. 4 times anti-aliasing. We don't need position or thickness. And for ID, we're not going to really use that either, so we'll just leave that on. And click on Bake Selected Textures. So what this is going to do is spend time baking out the map, and as you can see, it's kind of picking up some of those details that we had in the high poly that we did not have in the low poly, and this is going to look pretty clean. Maps might not be perfect, but that's just the nature of normal maps. Substance does a really good job at baking. So once this is done, as you can see, it's a little bit splotchy here, isn't it? Might need to look into that one. That's an issue. We might have to re-export it, but we have this baked in, we have those in the front, we have the holes in the top, and this here is an incredible bake. That looks really, really good. Remember, in Blender we didn't actually have that. If I can pull that up, in the low poly we didn't even have that, so that bake came out really, really nicely. And what else did we bake? Yeah, that was about it. This pipe looks pretty awful, not gonna lie. What I think I'm gonna do is fix the pipe, and I'm also going to fix this right here, this little thing. I don't know why it's all splotchy, so let's go ahead, hop back into Blender and take a look at what the issue is. So like I thought, the pipes are going to be a bit too low resolution for our high poly to bake on. So what I'm going to do is simply just press the L key on both of them, P to separate by selection, remove the bevel, run a subsurf, and then apply it and join it back together. And we're going to have to unwrap this again, but no big deal. It is a little bit high poly right here. If you really want to get down to the nitty-gritty, you can probably dissolve out some of this geo, but let's pretend that was already done. It's alright, it's not really a big difference, is it? But if you want to, you can come in here and start dissolving out some of this extra geo. I might do this off camera just to keep it clean. Really just go to every other edge and simply dissolve it out. There we go, got it all selected. Control X, and that's a little bit lower poly. I can manage that. And most of these here in the middle are not holding the curvature, so we can literally get in here and remove most of those. and unwrap it again, and then symmetrize it so we don't have to do it twice. Just to keep it nice and clean. I don't want to go like too low, but also not too high on the res. This one here was the main problem though. I'm not sure. I think I see the issue. It looks like this got like, maybe not. It looked like it got pushed back for a second. I'm not sure what the issue was. See that? That is interesting. Did I not have a seam marked here? Maybe I didn't. But the main issue came from the piece here in the front. I'm not too sure why it was so weird in the bake. It's interesting. Really don't know why. What I might do is simply come in here, press the L key on both of those, and then Alt S to simply scale this down just a bit, and the normal map might be a bit cleaner that way. We'll go ahead and give it a try. So let's go ahead and re-export this. So any changes we make, we have to re-export. So export as an FBX. And actually, since we scaled it down, we do need to unwrap this one more time. And then we can go in here to export FBX, selected objects, and just overwrite this one, mesh_low. Same idea in Substance. We'll go to File, New, select the low poly, 4K resolution, and we just have to bake the maps again. So really easy. We go to here, 4K, select the high poly mesh, do the 4x anti-aliasing, match it by name, and turn off position and thickness, and then bake it again. And let's cross our fingers. I'm usually not a fan of doing, you know, luck in actual asset creation, because that's not how it should be, but sometimes you're just annoyed with an issue and you're just like, can I just be blessed today and have it fixed? And hopefully that'll happen on this one, because that was a bit annoying. Still here. Fascinating, really, really fascinating. I'm not too sure what's causing it, to be honest with you. I doubt it's the bevel. I really don't think it's the bevel at all, but it could be. I don't think it is though. I know a solution that'll take care of the issue just fully. So what I'm going to do is simply select this on the low poly. What we're going to do is delete it and then go to our high poly. Jeez, I really need to fix that. Press the L key, duplicate it, separate it by selection, and then what we can do is join these together. And instead of just, you know, decimating this, we're not going to do anything except collapse these in. So merge at the center, merge at the center, and we'll come in here, merge this at the center. Actually, we'll do the face first, merge at center, and then M merge at center, and get rid of that extra geo we have hanging out. Dissolve that, and then if we symmetrize it and get rid of this, we should be good. This won't add too many extra vertices to the count. I think the bake was getting conflicts with the 64 vertex cylinder on a 32 vertex one, so these are perfectly overlapping now, so there shouldn't be any issues at all. So what we're going to do at this point is just once again re-unwrap this, and then unwrap. Make sure you mark a seam right here, and you mark a bevel weight right here since this is a new object, and then re-unwrap it, and also a seam down here, and a seam up, actually no seam up here, just a seam there on the bottom. Unwrap it. I can't tell it's better, maybe this one is better. Either way, this one's okay. And what we're going to do is go to File, Export FBX, and you know the drill already. Export this as a mesh low, and this one should definitely fix. So File, New, 4096, mesh low, and we're going to bake this hopefully one last time. So 4K, We're going to do our high poly mesh, match this by name, turn these off, and then bake it. And this one's almost done. Still the same thing. Really, really interesting. I'm honestly not too sure what's causing that. It's annoying, but it's something with a way to normal. I can see the shading issues. It's definitely a shading issue, and I want to leave this in here because I want to show how I solve things. And in here, if we go in here to matte cap, there's no shading issue on this one at all, which is interesting. So maybe it is the hard to normals being turned on after all. Maybe a way to normal is necessary here. So let's turn that on. Tick on the keep sharp option. There's a chance the hard to normals is actually the culprit here, so make sure the way to normals is turned on instead. The keep sharp we might need to actually turn off because keep sharp is basically the same as hard to normals at that point. So we'll try this. We'll try to re-export this, and I'm just going to skip the whole process here so you don't have to watch it again. That didn't fix it, but I found the culprit. So we put a way to normal on the low, but on the high we didn't. Notice how when we put a way to normal on the high, all the exact shading issues that we see in Substance are actually popping up on this mesh here. See right here, you can see the shading's bad. Same with Substance. It's looks like it's a hard or a way to normals issue. So what we're gonna try here is to, let me go in here to this one. We need to mark a bevel weight. I think we were missing a bevel weight here, and that was the issue. Very simple issue, but something that was annoying to find. So this right here, that was the problem. I'm pretty sure that was the problem. Now I also need to make sure the inside here is marked. Fill that in. Mark that, and mark that. And I honestly think this is going to solve the problem. So let's go ahead and re-export the high poly mesh. It's all problem solving, guys, so I know it took a while, but you're going to run into this stuff. So I'm pretty sure this will fix it if we re-import everything. So let's try it. Let's bake it again. I used the new export of the high poly. A lot of people will make changes to their mesh but forget to export it. So any changes you make to your high poly or low poly, make sure you actually export those. I've made that mistake before, and I'm pretty sure this is going to solve the problem. Just wait for it to finish up. There we go. That was the issue. So, like I said, way to normals and hard to normals can be problematic, especially if you were dumb like me and forgot to mark your bevel weights on the high poly mesh. So be very, very careful of that. Anyways, now that that is sorted, we can go ahead and get on with our texturing. So Substance Painter is really straightforward. It's much like Photoshop with layers and stuff. We can do a lot of presets. There's a Smart Materials option. We could come in here and maybe drop one with a nice cavity around the sides. So you could try this one. Drop that one on. That looks good. And Smart Materials have a bunch of different settings in, whereas default materials have like one set material. Smart Materials have filters applied to it and things like that, which is why I like it. I like the red on here. It's actually pretty clean, but if you wanted to adjust it, you would just go into the folder here, find the one with the color. Looks like it is right here. We can change the color of the shiny paint to like a brown if we wanted to, but I actually like the red. It looks pretty good. I want to give you like a general rundown because this isn't meant to be like a full Substance Painter tutorial, but you can do all sorts of cool stuff. Say for example I wanted to run like dirt across here or rust or something, so I could come in here and search for dirt, and once I find a dirt I could put this at the top of the layer stack, and notice how this completely, well not in this case, I guess it's based off the cavity since it's a smart material, but maybe in a regular material we could do like rust, and if I put this rust right at the top, notice how it goes over the whole thing. What we could do is do something like a right click, add a black mask, white reveals and black conceals. So this is pretty much removing all the effects, and you could paint in rust if you wanted to. But an even better way is to do this generatively. So if we right click and add a generator, we could actually come in here and do like a nice dripping effect, which is pretty cool. You could do something based off of the edges like that, which we already have from the smart material. You could do dirt, make it like a dirty effect, but I don't think rust really appears like that. Maybe it does, I don't know. Dripping's cool. I like the, which one was it? It was the original one, the dirt curvature. Which one was it? No, it was the dripping effect, I think. Yeah, the dripping looks really good. But yeah, you can do all sorts of cool things with that. You could even paint in more if you wanted to. We'd probably have to add in an additional layer on that, so what we would do is come in here, right click to add a paint layer, and you could paint in more rust like that. Pretty cool. But I'm happy with the generator. We could also add in alphas on here. So for example, if I wanted to add in like a logo, much like you see in the alphas panel here, I could add in a new, I think we have to do a fill layer for this one, and then right click to add a black mask, and all we have to do on this one is go to our alpha, choose an alpha, maybe we'll do like an arrow, and you can paint those on. Really cool. And if you press Control and right click, that'll scale the size of your brush. You can also do it up here like that. You could do like a nice alpha, drop the opacity a bit, make something cool like that. And the best thing about this is no more geo is being added. It's all on the UVs, which is really cool. So we could do that and just put, you know, all sorts of cool logos here. Maybe in the back I could put like a brush stain or something. It's a bit too much, isn't it? We could do like, it's going to be a bit too heavy, so maybe we'll do another fill layer. Add a fill layer with a black mask and do it this way, but on this one we can simply drop the opacity lower and get ourselves some cool little like stained effects or something. Do something like that. Just make it, you know, nice and dirty or something. Get all sorts of cool stuff. Could try whatever this is. Maybe this one? And drop the opacity just a bit lower. Kind of like that. Let's do 10. And that's how you can do alphas. You can also do normal maps like decals. So we could do that by adding in a simple paint layer, which isn't a fill layer, doesn't add anything to it. We're going to go down here, turn off color and turn on normal only, and we can go to our hard surfaces menu and simply make some sort of cool panel, drag that in, and we can literally come in here and add in like a cool panel effect, right? It's pretty cool. I like it. We could do something up here. We could do like a, oops, wrong one. If I can actually drag it in, do like a little panel or something. Maybe one of these. Don't forget to save your scenes as well, really important. We'll just do tier 3 vanilla. We'll maybe add some more panels in the back. If you want to move the lighting, just shift and right click to move that. And now you can get something in here that you can see better. Put like a little detail here in the corner. You can also do a symmetry, so if you wanted this to go the other side, all you have to do is go up here to the Symmetrize button, click on the Mirror Z button, and then it'll literally mirror across like that. Looks pretty good. Bit too much right there. And that's the gist of Substance. There's so much cool stuff you can do in here, and I just want to encourage you to make your own details on your own, add materials, add different layers, do generator effects. You can do all sorts of cool stuff. So, you know, don't hesitate to do it. It's really cool and really fun to do. I think this is good enough though for the tutorial. So what I'm going to do is get this thing ready for exporting and then bring this into Unreal. This normal map is actually really nice. You can kind of see it's not the cleanest if you zoom up on it, but I mean, that's how a normal map is. Any video game you go to, you're going to kind of see these effects, but it did a pretty good job. I'm not too dissatisfied with it. The holes on the top look really clean. I like that, especially the curvature around it. Looks really nice. Alright, so let's prepare this thing for Unreal Engine, export the textures, get all that good stuff ready, and we'll be done. So we're going to go to File, Export Textures, and this is going to be a bit tricky, so let me show you. We're going to do a PNG set to 16 bits, and we're going to use the PBR metallic roughness setting. So go up here, not the from cache, but from the default one up here. And if we go to list of exports, or not that, output templates, what you're going to notice is that for the PBR metallic roughness, we have a bunch of different settings in here. One of which is emissive and height. We don't have either of those, so we're going to remove these. We don't need those maps. But we don't have an AO map, and we definitely want an AO map. So to add in an AO map, we can just add an RGB channel and drag in the ambient occlusion option to this setting right here. We'll just do a gray channel. I think that's fine, and it should pick up everything. And we need to rename this, so copy and paste any of these, Control C and Control V, and rename the normal to AO, so that way we know what it is. And at this point we're ready to go to Settings. Make sure once again this is set to PBR metallic roughness, the same as this one. Then we're going to go to PNG 16 bits, click on Mesh, and these are all the maps that will have exported base color roughness, and these other three. Metallic normal AO, and this is everything we need for Unreal Engine. So let's go ahead and click on the export button, and make sure you choose a good folder. The default one is not very convenient, so I'll just go to this folder and click on export. And now as you can see, we have all these maps in here, and we can simply bring these into Unreal Engine, import the mesh, and we're good to go. So let's go ahead and load up Unreal Engine. So here I've just loaded up the default scene, and just to make it simple, you can literally go in here and delete everything out that you don't want. Maybe just leave this single block right here. Maybe we'll do this one. And we can also select the sun, and if we press the E key, we can rotate it a bit to a more convenient location. And now what we're going to do is import. So click on the import button, go to wherever you have your low poly, so we'll go to the low poly one. Make sure you're not doing the high poly, click on import. And what we're going to do is drag that in. Here it is. Maybe rotate it a bit and move it over. You can press W, E, and R to switch between these. And all we're going to do now is import the maps as well. So select all these, click on open, and then we'll just click on the material, and you can double click on that, delete out this default one, and connect everything up. So normal, RGB to normal, base color, RGB to base color, and these other three are a bit tricky. So roughness, red to roughness, 2 R's, metallic, blue to metallic, metals are cold, and cold is blue, and AO is green. I don't know how you want to remember that one, but green to AO, and then click on apply. Give that a second, and there we go. We have our mesh and textures imported into Unreal Engine with no problems at all. So anyone yelling at you for using n-gons here and there is not telling the truth, because everything gets triangulated on export anyways. It is a good idea to try triangulating things before you export in case of issues, but n-gons are not an issue. If we were to go into our drop down, actually no, go to show, advanced, and then go to, where is it, mesh edges. As you can see, everything here is triangulated anyways, and there is no problem at all. So yeah, the n-gons we had are not a problem, and if they are a problem, then you can deal with them accordingly, but in this case they were just fine, so no stress there. Maybe rotate this a bit so we can see this a bit better in the light. Rotate the light as well. Let's Control C and then Control V. Just make another light. To really pick up, make the intensity a bit higher, do like 10. This one will do like 5. And there we go. So that's about it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. You could even click play and walk around it. Pretty cool. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a lot in this tutorial and kind of understand the workflow from Blender to Substance to Unreal, and all the texturing involved and, you know, importing, all that good stuff. So hope you learned a lot. And if you like stuff like this, definitely let me know, because I'll plan to do more if everyone enjoys it. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in next month's tutorial.